As academic coaches and teachers and tutors and people who love working with students, how do we help set them and ourselves up for inevitable success in school and in life? I have a list of 7 do's and don'ts, and I'm going to talk about 2 of them today, so let's dig in. The first tendency I want to talk about is the tendency to try to be perfect, especially the first time or even the second or third time that you do anything. I see this in students all the time. Did you know that often the student who seems the laziest is actually a closet perfectionist? I know! When I was a teacher, I had no idea this was the case. And then I started coaching students one-to-one, and I realized how many students who don't follow through are actually not following through because they're afraid they're going to make a mistake. And they're afraid that they're not going to do it well, and they're going to disappoint themselves and us. Whoa. So what's the solution then? The solution is to practice doing it imperfectly. And I like to talk about the wisdom of imperfect action. It's actually not laziness, right? It's actually not a moral failure on your part if you sometimes turn in shitty work. And in fact, it's the shitty first draft that we can then edit to turn into an even better and an even better and an even better first draft. And sometimes, because our brains up here are often filled with so much self-hatred, it turns out that the shitty first draft actually, once we get to the other side of feeling ashamed about it, is actually a pretty good first draft. Now, I know this is not true for every student, and I know there are some students who think their drafts are good, but actually, not so much. But more students than we think, and more adults, more teachers than we think, are actually addicted to perfectionism. It's really a bigger problem than I ever knew existed. And now, when somebody says, I'm a perfectionist, and they sound proud of themselves, I actually feel sad for them. And I actually really want to help them get more comfortable doing shitty work. So at the end of this video, I'm going to wrap back around and share with you an empowering question that you can ask students or yourselves to try and break into this solution. But I want to talk about another tendency that I see a lot. I love that this one is coming hand in hand with the perfectionism one, because this one is the tendency to take the process or the outcome too seriously. Recovering perfectionists tend to also be recovering serious people. So the solution is to do it playfully. Whatever it is, try and find ways to do it playfully. This is a muscle for us to develop that I, thankfully, am like an Olympic athlete in doing things playfully. But not everybody has the natural tendency that Gretchen Wegner, academic coach, does. But it's a muscle that we can actually learn, we can work with. And so the wisdom of having fun suggests to us that it is worthwhile to put time and effort into being playful. As coaches, you can do that with your students. As teachers, you can do that with your students. And all of us can do it with ourselves. So before we get to the empowering questions, I want to just share a couple stories, because all of my brilliance that I share here on YouTube comes from mentors and other brilliant people who I have learned from in my history. And this particular one, the wisdom of doing things playfully, comes from an organization that is very near and dear to my heart called Interplay. I have shared a number of my do's and don'ts come because of my experience in Interplay, but I spent 10 years teaching an improvisational community arts practice based on Interplay every Tuesday. And I swear that decade of weekly play did more for my mental health than anything else I could possibly have done. And I'm really excited when I come back from my medical leave and my sabbatical to start incorporating more active play sessions on Zoom in my anti-boring learning lab for educators. So if you think you might want to have more play, come on down. Find us. We'll be playing. So the other tendency, this perfectionism one, and the wisdom of imperfect action, where did I get? Oh, yeah. This phrase, imperfect action, I heard at the very first training of a marketing experience that was called The Big Shift. And when the coaches who were teaching, this was a weekend long experience, there were 400 people in a ballroom. When they first said the phrase imperfect action, I went, I need that. Whatever that is, I need it. It scares the crap out of me, but I freaking need imperfect action. And ever since then, I have been practicing it over and over and over. And it's terrifying to do unless you know how to play as well. So imperfect action and playfulness go hand in hand. Okay, let's quick get to those empowering questions. The first one, this may be pretty straightforward. What can we do to infuse more fun into this task or process? Let's brainstorm. And then have that brainstorm with your student, your students. Ask a friend to do that brainstorm with you. I'm needing more fun. Can we brainstorm some ways? This will build that playfulness muscle. The next empowering question is, would you be willing, it's one of my favorite sentence starters in coaching, would you be willing to write a shitty first draft? And usually the answer is, I don't know. And then you can work with that. But still, the first question, would you be willing to simply write a shitty first draft? That is a really powerful question. That is a really powerful question, singular. Do you have any other empowering questions that you ask students or you ask yourself to get yourself to experience inevitable success? I would love to hear them. Write them below. I'll see you in the next video.